Hi, I'm Fred, head coach at Yousuli. Welcome to the Epic Endurance Podcast, where we take a deep dive into endurance, strength and conditioning. Today we are going to talk about intra-workout fueling, the amount of calories that you should be taking during your training and racing, and why. This video is mostly informative. I know every time we talk about nutrition, it can get very complicated, and a lot of people on the internet have a lot of opinions. For me, as a sport nutritionist, I think that nutrition is often a red herring. It means that people follow it and get distracted by little things, when most of the time the most essential thing that they can do to improve is follow guidelines, and we're going to talk about guidelines, what we know of them. My experience is that most people do not follow guidelines even closely, and there is a lot to reap for guidelines for 99% of the population. Now, when people do have specific issues or are coming with health issues or are in very specific diets, then there are other considerations to take. Before we start into a guideline, I'm going to address these two things, which is number one, people doing keto. My point of view is that I cannot find any concrete evidence that showcase that benefits weight more than the drawbacks. Fat adaptation occurs naturally through training. The more you train, the more you do aerobic exercise, then the better your body is generally at utilizing fat for creating energy. Your aerobic threshold is going to move, your mitochondrial function is going to improve. This is not necessarily linked to your diet, but just by the simple fact of increasing volume of training, you're improving your fat adaptation. Forcing your body to go through fat adaptation while restricting carbohydrate intake might improve it a little bit, but then will diminish two things: your carbohydrate intake capacity. That means that if you were to reintroduce carbohydrates in an event, then this might be impaired, and also your glycogen store, so the sugar reserves you have into your body. Some athletes that do keto diet, when they do a bit more advanced, they do keto all the time, and then they do some carb intake the day before the race and some carb intake in the race. That can mitigate the effects of the ketogenic diets. I do not think that this is necessary for most people. There might be some benefits for ultra endurance athlete doing multi-days running in the mountains, but for most people the benefits are not fantastic. I'm talking about performance. For a person who do not like to eat carbs or feel that going keto is a great way to lose weight, for example, although I would not advocate it, I can understand. Number two is fastest state training. People that do training in the morning without having any food, either for weight loss or for, again, reinforcing this idea of improving fat utilization. And again, fat utilization is improved through aerobic exercise. And what I see from data, missing out on intra-workout fueling or pre-training fueling will most likely impair sugar levels and potentially put people into light hypoglycemia, so having low blood sugar, which will impair recovery and performance. I would strongly suggest to follow guidelines for most people, especially if you do not follow them, unless you have specific reasons not to, and the guidelines will be to intake carbohydrates during your training, because carbohydrates, like we talk in other videos, your energy production is based on mostly two micronutrients, going to be your fat and your sugar reserves in your body. And fat, we all have fat already available, so intaking fat is not necessary. You have enough fat to do a lot of things for a very long time, but the problem with fat is it's going to be mostly used at lower intensities, and when you start to ramp up the intensity, then the ratio of fat to carbohydrate is going to change. The faster you're going onto this scale in percentage, then again, I would say the ratio is going to increase. So that's going to be one factor that's going to determine how much sugar you need. The second one is how much power output, how much work you're able to sustain. If a person, for example, on the bicycle was pushing in zone 3 150 watts and a professional was pushing in the same zone 300 watts, the calorie consumption per hour will be fundamentally different. The ratio of sugar to fat might be the same, but the rate at which they're burning the sugar will be much faster because they are burning more energy. There are three factors that can decide how much sugar you should intake: the duration of the event, the intensity factor and the work output you're able to do. Most guidelines will disregard the intensity factor because in most cases you will not be able to bring back all calories and it will be pretty difficult. If you're on a bicycle and you're pushing 200 watts per hour, which for many, then you're most likely going to burn around 700, 800 calories per hour, which is almost the equivalent of 200 grams of sugar, and your body will not be able to take this. So when you reach these kind of intensities or performance, then you'll always end up on a deficit. How much deficit you take is dependent on how much you're able to absorb. Failure to intake carbohydrate during your training, again, will most likely lead to hypoglycemia, and your blood sugar is going to drop. Even at low intensity, your blood sugar is going to drop, and this is going to affect both your performance during the event, your mood post the event, your recovery after the event, and very often what I can see also affects your sleep pattern. We understand that carbohydrate is good. What about the other ones during training? What you want to do ideally during training, you're mostly going to be using carbohydrates. Fat is there. Carbohydrates needed to be coming to your body very fast. If you intake other micronutrients or fiber, it's going to slow down the rate of absorption. So your body will not be able to utilize this energy as fast as it would if it was in a form that is really easy to absorb. In a day-to-day time, when you're sedentary, then you want to absorb things quite slowly so they do not transform into fats. Here you want to do the opposite. You want to be able to absorb things quite fast. Simple carbohydrates will be absorbed faster than complex carbohydrates. So if you're eating rice, it'll be slower than if you were eating sugar or gels. There is a limit on how much your digestive system can intake per hour. And usually when people reach about the 60 grams of sugar per hour, using one source of sugar is no longer working. And passing this and going a little above this will increase the chance of having gastrointestinal discomfort. And what we do to overcome this, then we utilize different kind of source of sugar which are absorbed at the same time through different pathways. Being properly hydrated and having correct electrolyte balance is crucial in increasing the absorption rate of these nutrients. A thing that I see athletes fail to do during training is training their stomach to handle a certain amount of sugar intake. Your training session should not be the time where you really worry about losing weight. Intaking energy during training is going to improve the quality of your training by keeping you fresh. Some sugar will keep your mind fresh, but also will impact, like we said, positively in this case, your recovery. So you do want to fuel at almost, if not every training session you do. Now, how much you do, I made a small calculator again to try to simplify this, and we are going to take a small look. This is called the Intraworkout Fueling Calculator. Fairly simple, and what you're going to do, you're going to input a workout duration in minutes. So this is a 60-minute duration, and you have 3 selections here: minimum, recommended, maximum. And we'll start with the minimum for a 60-minute workout. That would be 20 grams or 80 calories per hour. And because the workout is an hour, is the same time. This is not a lot. You have some references. One gel is 25, so that will make up for 1 hour of this. One banana. The middle gels are the bigger dates, some cane sugar, sport drink. This is the concentration of carbohydrates, CHO carbohydrates, that you'll find in many drinks. Concentration going above 8%, which you have written here, might cause gastrointestinal issues. You can train your body to absorb these things, but yeah, again, it depends on what kind of sugar is inside. Stomach training is important, and practicing filling during your workouts will help you manage stomach issues during your races, where stress might also increase the chances of having GI distress. If we're going to even like a 30-minute workout, at the minimum, I would recommend nothing, but recommended probably something like 20 grams as well. And you can play with this and say, you're heading for a long bike ride, but it is 3 hour long. Recommended will be 100 grams per hour, which is quite high. Minimum will be 75 grams. The former paradigm was to be around 60 grams per hour, but it is not sufficient to maintain especially into longer events. For people that are not used to fueling during their workout, I would suggest starting with the minimum and trying to ramp up. 60 grams per hour of sugar is about 240 calories. This is not going to sustain your sugar reserves for very long. So if you're in a race, like a long distance triathlon Ironman, you will most likely end up in deficit by the run. You might not feel it during the bike, but by the end of the bike, when you start the run, then you're probably going to hit the wall. So going into the higher numbers are probably preferable. I recommend playing with this. This is something that many athletes miss out during training. This will improve both performance, recovery, and ultimately your well-being during your training and racing. Being constantly low on sugar is not good for your mental health, and there have been studies showing that it can also disrupt your thyroid gland and create on the long term some damage there. So do pay attention to these things. I hope that this is helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Have a good one, and I'll see you later.